Welcome to the podcast Effekten. Normally, our podcast is in Swedish, but we had the opportunity to talk to Peter Morris, who works at Society as an Agile coach, and we did this in English. I hope you will hear everything about how to become a good team, a team that develops a product with a value.
One of the most important things around digital transformation is the Agile method. Being agile and iterate is one of the key things that I think is one of the great things for every organization to adopt. And welcome to the podcast, Peter.
Hello, happy to be here.
And Peter, being an expert in Agile Teams, so what is an Agile team for you?
I always get nervous about the expert word, but here we go. I think an Agile team is a team that has the capability and intent to change what they're delivering and or how they are delivering it.
It seems that they are not afraid.
No, not afraid at all. I think there are a lot of teams that look kind of agile, but they can't really change. They don't have the capability. The environment doesn't support it, and really they don't have the sense of ownership. So they don't have that intent to change. So an agile team really has that capability and intent,
But they want to change and they want to deliver. Always, I think that I'm looking at the team. They want to deliver, and they are. I use the word afraid of the value around what they're gonna deliver. So they can't be ideal in this environment because they're gonna go deliver.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where it comes down to the leadership. And a lot of my job is working with leaders to create that understanding and space with the team so we can work on that fear and say, yes, delivery is really important. And I'm never going to say, stop delivering. But sometimes we need to really think critically about what's really important to deliver here and how are we going to behave as a team in a year or 2 years' time? What kind of team do we want to build?
Yeah, and one thing that is when you talk about Agile team, you can talk about the software developer and Scrum and so forth. But for you, give us some good examples. You have begun already to give us some good example about being in Agile or Agile teams.
Yeah, I think so. I have an example of my first Agile team, which, by the way, when I began, I was thinking, wow, Scrum team. It's got all these Scrum names. I've been looking forward to working with Scrum for ages. They're doing retrospectives. There's a product owner. It was only maybe a year after I'd been working with them where I looked back and thought that wasn't an Agile team at all. When I a year in, when I realized that, hey, we're taking the time to reflect. We're really digging deep into how does our team work. We're all taking ownership of the value that we're creating for the customer, and we're all collaborating in a way that makes us feel like there aren't lots of different people on the team. It feels like we're working as one person towards those goals. For me, that's an Agile team, a really good Agile team where it feels like we're working in step with each other, where we're all coming forward, we're all working on the same purpose, the same mission to create that value for the customer.
Yeah, but was it wrong to follow Scrum strictly, which is a method around being Agile? But if compared to...
I mean, I don't think we were following it strictly, but I think the problem that we had was we were following it mechanically. The Scrum guide says that we're supposed to have a retrospective, so we do a retrospective, but in this particular team, we were really happy that retrospectives were taking us 15 minutes. We can do them so quickly. We're better than any other team. We didn't realize that, hey, in a retrospective, we should be digging deep into the team. We should really be challenging our ways of working. And that team were never really thinking critically about how they are working. They were just doing retrospectives because they've always done retrospectives, and they didn't really understand the purpose of that activity. They didn't connect it to how we're working.
But you said dig deeper. What's dig deeper in a respect? If you're looking at the
yeah, I give an example. One of the after I had a bit of an awakening as a Scrum Master, I came back to the team and said, "Hey, we're going to take an hour now. We've never taken an hour. People were grumpy, but we're gonna take an hour. And what I want to do is draw a graph about the last couple of sprints, which we'd never done. We'd only ever done exactly the same format, and I'm sure lots of people listening will have done the same format. What went well, what didn't go so well, what changes should we make? When you do that in 15 minutes, you don't get to any real topics. What I made the team do was say, look at the last couple of sprints, and let's draw a graph of our stress level and our workload. And let's see, everybody do that individually, and let's compare and talk about the results. And when we did that, we suddenly ended up with all of these problems being discussed that had been there for months and months and months, but we'd never been brought up because of the way we'd approached the retrospective, with the goal of, hey, let's get this done quickly and let's make sure we get let's modify that template kind of improvement.
Just to clarify, when you say team and the success you had in this example, do you include the product owner or the customer there?
We included the product owner, and we did have a customer attending our sprint reviews. But the customer was a bit more hands-off, so our product owner was more representative of the customer than maybe some other teams.
Well, being the Agile team and giving us good examples, do you have any more examples of being Agile or working in a Agile team?
Yeah, I think so. So another team that I worked with, trying to think back now. So we worked on, this was more of a traditional Agile team. We're working with software, where we were constantly trying to understand how our software was being used by the customers. So lots of telemetrics that we were using to try and understand what's being used, what's the most useful thing that we can do next. We were quite early stage and working as part of a transformation, building essentially a new tool, and we were trying to survive as a team. We had a limited budget in this transformation, and we were saying, how do we know that our tool is going to be really, really important in the future, but we need to survive. We need to keep getting that funding from the executive committee. We need to justify our existence. So every sprint, we were looking for examples of where could we push our tool in and get people to use our tool, support them, and get those initial early adopters and demonstrate that, hey, our tool is really, really important. But at the same time, connect with those senior executives and say, this is your mission, and this is how we're helping deliver your mission in these particular cases. Please don't get rid of our funding.
But was that a team of software developers?
Yeah, there was a couple, mostly software developers, but we had some cybersecurity in the team. Cybersecurity was a very important thing in that team.
To my point here is if you are a software developer or just making code or making stuff, you don't have the mindset of thinking like your team did there, and survival and talking to the key stakeholders and so forth. Is that also a good example of taking the next step in the Agile team?
No, I think this is why every career boost that I'm doing, I'm pushing so hard this idea of don't just be a coder. Doing code, sure, you'll have a job anywhere you go, but if you want a real established long-term career, become a product developer. If you want to be a CTO, if you want to be reaching higher heights in your career, become a product developer. Where you take, and there's a lot of overlap between what the product developer is doing and what traditionally a product owner might be 100% responsible for. It's not about the product developer spending all their time talking with stakeholders and or maybe writing user stories and things like that. But I think the product developer takes it doesn't matter if they're developing software, if they're a designer or cybersecurity, they're still part of a product developer. They take ownership of the product. They take ownership of the value of where the team's going. It's really big for me in a team is, let's build a team of product developers.
I had an opinion about that and published a LinkedIn post about when we now see AI, generative AI, helping our software developers in making code. Maybe the time that is left now could be focusing on creating the value and think one step ahead of the product and being the value makers instead in the team. I don't know if you have the same opinion.
Yeah, exactly. I think I listened to another podcast recently where had this idea that software developers now are the factory managers of 100 years ago, where they're able to make decisions and choices that make quite large impact. They're able to control what happens here and there, and they've taken that step up to be able to look and be able to put in a position of deciding what value they're going to focus on creating, and they're using software as a tool to get to that position. I see tools like Gen AI or Copilot and things like that as they can help developers become those product developers. They're not about helping them make more code, because I don't think that's the answer. I sometimes get in trouble for saying that coding is the easy part. There are some applications where the coding is quite difficult, but for the most part, code is easy. If building an actual product, that's difficult. Product that people want to use, that they like using, that's where we need people to help. And that's where we need everybody in the team activated, focusing on.
Code is easy. People are a little bit...
Yeah, let's not have that as the show title.
We had a little conversation before starting the recording, and you said that the Agile team that giggles and break rules.
Yeah,
that's a good example of looking at a team that is a really good Agile team. Can you explain
I think
more that
every team that I work with, I would say that maybe 60-70% of the teams are sort of doing a kind of mechanical version of Agile. They look Agile, they've got a Jira type thing, they're doing kind of sprinty type things, so they look Agile, but really culturally they're not there. And I think a lot of the teams, when I'm working with a team, one of the things I'm looking for is the giggle, and the giggle is when a team starts to break the rules around them, or the rules that they perceive. All teams have got these kind of rules that don't really exist, and it can be stuff like, we the developers never write user stories because that's somebody else's job, or it can be stuff like we never make decisions ourselves. That's always pushed up to the product owner. And then what I'm looking for in a team is when we take those steps over those rules. So maybe a developer makes a choice without consulting the product owner, and you always see this little giggle, a little bit like kids in a classroom doing things right behind the teacher's back. You go, I've just done this, and wow, what a rush that was. We've taken ownership for something, and hey, this feels good. And that giggle is the first sign of, hey, good stuff is about to happen here.
Yeah, but management doesn't like that, huh?
They don't like fun or giggling.
No, but looking at the team that giggles or having fun, it's like, are you productive? Can you give us examples that in numbers that the giggle is better than the traditional Scrum team or whatever? Do you have any statistics or numbers around?
So I can say that in my first team is the biggest number I can pull to. After giggling, a little way after that, we doubled our productivity within about 6 months of me beginning with that team and going through my own giggle moment as a Scrum Master, going, haha, this is actually how to do the role. We doubled our productivity. We went from 3 to 4 months lead time for a new, let's say, feature to 4 to 6 weeks. And just by the way we were working, we didn't substantially changed, just the approach to the work. We changed.
When you are looking at the team, do you come to a team that doesn't work, or do you start building a team? How do you approach as an agile coach?
I think mostly as a consultant, you get pulled into teams that are not working, and I think that's been some of my experience where teams have said, "Hey, this is really broken. The team's not delivering anything. How do we fix this?" I also started teams as well, which can often be a lot more fun when you get at the beginning and you get to build up. You don't have those anti-patterns. I've got no real preference. It's always fun when you have a really stuck team. I think those are the more interesting problems.
Yeah. So how do you do that? Because I understand that they call you and there is something that they need. A change in the team or something. What's the first step? Because of that, I think that
it depends on your agile coach. But for me, and I think this is the right way to go about it, an agile coach is an extension of the leadership team, and I think we've got to be really careful about the team not becoming too dependent on us. Especially as a consultant, my job, my target is to make myself redundant as quickly as possible to help the team learn to solve these challenges themselves. My first thing is always working with the leadership to understand their expectation and understand how they've come to this point, but then working with the team and going around the team and asking, what do you need from me? Like, I'm not coming in as a leader and I'm not coming in to say, hey, your process is wrong. I always like to say that my focus is people, people, people. We have a little bit of process, a little bit of methodology to taste. Like, process is the salt and pepper of my work, and really, most problems are people problems. It's people have got into a state of they haven't had those good conversations about how should we work together, and they get into all these kind of problems that build and build and build as people try to fix things, but not in a way that they don't really try to solve the root cause. So I try to come in as an independent person and just listen, and then I have a technique which has worked most times, where I'll go to people, and when you start talking to people, they start coming up with these ideas. Like, here is something that I want you to do, and I will always say to people, hey, I think what you're saying makes sense. I understand what you want to achieve, and your solution seems sensible, but I'm not going to take it forwards. But I am going to create the space for you to take it forwards if you choose to. And I think this is the distinction that I make as an agile coach as opposed to maybe a leader. I'm trying to create that space for people and push people and say, look, I'm hands off. Like, I'm here to create that space, and that's my role. But you need to take ownership for driving this forwards. And usually the first retrospective or first team meeting after I've come in and done that, it's really, really, really interesting. So all these ideas suddenly flood out. People realize, hey, I've got to take ownership of it.
People and communication.
People and communication, yeah. That was a long way of saying that.
We've been talking back and forth around Agile team and being agile, which is popular words around iterations, around making products, often in software developing projects. But can you summarize for us, how do I succeed in making this perfect Agile team and working Agile?
Yeah. How do I succeed? I think there's no magic formula, but for me, and this is how it steers me in my work, is I focus on the Scrum pillars: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So transparency means that we're sharing information. There's a lot that goes into building transparency, but as long as we're improving transparency and maintaining it, we have good communication, we have good ways of sharing. That's really important. That's a bedrock. Inspection, we're looking at what we're doing. We're building that we're able to have that capability to look critically at what we're doing. Then inspection also means we have the intent to look at how we're working, and we have the intent to change. And adaptation, which is actually acting on that feedback. being able to adapt, being able to make changes to what we're delivering, being able to make changes to how we're delivering it. So what I said at the start about what an agile team is, they have the capability and the intent to change. And I think to get there, you focus on transparency, inspection, and adaptation. And I'm always looking at those three things when I'm working with teams or leaders.
Is these 3 steps or 3 things also the things that brings value to the client or customer? Or is that the 4th, or is it?
So I always focus on the teams. So I assume that the teams are trying to create value for their customer. They have been employed to create value. They know that that's their role. And my role as a coach is to come in and help those teams work, improve their ways of working, take ownership for continuously improving their ways of working. And yeah, I will steer people to think about value, but my hope is that when I join a team, they've all been recruited and told, this is the direction, let's go. So really my role is just helping people get better at going to where they're already going.
20 minutes about Agile Teams, and we're going to add some links in the show notes. So just have your podcast player now and look for the links and look for the contact information to Peter. And thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you very much. It's very fun. Very fun.